This is online journalism. My name is Xavier with an X. Today we're going to talk about the 5 W's of journalism. This is basic journalistic stuff, okay? This is lesson number 2. So let's get started. Action! Okay. The modern world is full of things to do and so little time. But this has been the same since a couple of centuries, because they're always talking of the modern man and the world that's demanding time. So when journalists started printing newspapers, they had this in mind. So they said, what would be the most efficient way to construct, to write news, so people that have very little time and newspapers that have very limited space can put those news in a way that is efficient. So this is when they created this little triangle here, and that triangle is supposed to be a pyramid, an inverted pyramid. In other words, just a pyramid upside down. And the idea of this is that you should write your news this way, with answering the most important questions, or the most basic and fundamental questions of a news report, answering these 5 W's first. And then you can go on. This way, the newspaper editor, if he is lacking space, he just cuts a little bit from the tail, let's say, call it the tail of the news. And there is nothing lost. I mean, well, there's something lost, but not something that will affect the general understanding of that news. It will be a detail that is lost. The same if the reader doesn't have time. Maybe you're reading in a smartphone, and the bus stop comes and you have to run, so you have to close it, and you got to the middle, but you have the basic information. Why? Because it's well written in a form that is called the lead paragraph. So this pyramid upside down will give you the basic information first in the lead paragraph, which is paragraph number 1. And this paragraph number 1 has to have the 5 W's, which we have here. Who was involved in that news? What happened to him or her? Where did this occur? When and why? So it's the 5 W's. You see, all of them have W's. So those are the 5 W's. Okay. There's a very nice poem regarding the 5 W's by the writer Rudyard Kipling. He was also a journalist. It was very nice, and this is the way it goes. It's from The Elephant's Child, a book he wrote. It says, I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when, and how and where and who. Now you see he got another one. He got how. First of all, how doesn't begin with a W, but it has a W. But in modern times, at least that's the way I feel, how is answered by the what and where and when. Because how, I mean, what is very, very wide scope, so I think we don't need how. But the poem is nice. Their names are what and why and when, and how and where and who. Very nice poem. But I'll stick to the 5. Okay? Who, what, where, when. Okay. Let's give some examples. Who won the general elections? Okay, that's basic information if you're going to do a news report on the elections. So you have to say, President Obama, what, won the general elections? Where? In the continental U.S. or in the U.S., United States of America. When? Last Saturday. Why? Because he got the majority of the votes of the people of the U.S. Okay, so you have to answer those questions in order to make sense. If you don't give the reader those answers in the first paragraph, I mean, if it's too complicated, it can be in the first and second paragraph. But basically, it's the first paragraph. Many times you read in newsletters and in different places that are not written by professional journalists that something is lacking. I mean, if they tell you there's an earthquake, and they don't tell you when, could be 300 years ago. If they tell you there has been a robbery and at a gas station, well, you're gonna be very interested if it's in your community, but if it's in China, probably you don't mind very much. So when and where are basic. What? I don't have to explain what. I mean, obviously what is important. What happened? And who depends on who is the who. Because it could be a homeless man, which in that case probably is not very relevant. I'm sorry for this guy who got run over by a bus, whatever. But it's not the same that it's a famous movie star, or it's the mayor of the town, or it's your teacher, or if it's your boss. So these are related to the value of the news. And the journalist who is writing and let's say constructing, we can use that word, the lead paragraph, he has to choose which of these is first, which is second, third, okay? Because remember, in the beginning, the main information, and in the rest of the body, let's call it the body of the news report, you have to put all the details. For instance, let's say that there's a rabbi in your community, and he is crossing the street, and he gets run over by a school bus. Okay? So probably we would start that information with the who, because he's very relevant. Everybody in the community knows the rabbi. So we will say, the rabbi, Avraham Baum, got run over by the bus full of kids in the corner of Main Street this morning. Why? Well, in breaking news, the why is difficult. You are not sure of the why. Nevertheless, you can say or put it in the mouth of people that are going to do, let's say, an investigation. For instance, the fire department always investigates the cause of the fire. Maybe at that moment they don't know what caused the fire. But a couple of days later, the fire department will issue a report on the causes of the fire. In this case, with the rabbi, probably the transit department will give you a state of the brakes of the bus to see if the bus had good brakes, to see if the driver in the bus didn't have toxic substances in his body when he was driving, and or all those details are not going to be ready for the first edition of the newspaper or the online newspaper. So the why may wait a little bit, but if all the information you have, you can put it, giving the sources of that information. Okay? So, what happens if it was not the rabbi? If it was a normal person who nobody knew very much, not a public person, well, then probably you won't start with the who, because the who is not so relevant. So you will start with the what, and you will say, a bus full of children ran over a 30-year-old man in Main Street this morning. His name was blah, blah, blah. So the journalist, depending on the value of the news for his audience, remember, news is tied to the audience, okay? And to the relevance of these questions in that particular audience and that particular newspaper, online newsletter, radio, television, whatever. Okay? But maybe, even though it's a normal person that was ran over, if it happens to be the janitor of your school, it's going to be very important for a school online news report. So you would have to, even though he's not, like very famous, it is famous in your audience. So you would say, this was, let's say, a very nice guy, our janitor, such and such, was ran over by the school bus, blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't have to be famous, like world famous. It has to be relevant to your community, to your audience. Okay? Obviously, if your teacher, which is a simple person, got run over by the bus, that would be absolutely. You have to start with the who. Okay. So let's recap a little bit. So remember the 5 W's. Very easy. Who, what, where, when, why. As I told you, the why is a little bit tricky. Probably you have to wait a little bit. But in any case, you, as a responsible journalist, will give the sources of your information. If you can say why, you will say, the fire department said, the police report said, the owner of the cafeteria in front of the corner will say that there's an accident every week in this corner. Well, that's interesting. So in any case, remember that the main idea is to have the 5 W's in the lead paragraph and the rest of things in the body of the report. What happens if you talked about the rabbi in the beginning, but then you talk in the body of all his experience, that he did a great job in his community, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm going to give you a homework again. I would like you to do one lead paragraph or one news item every day for this coming week, and try to have all the 5 questions in that, all the 5 W answered in that lead paragraph of a news that you chose from your community, for your specific audience. Okay? So that's the homework. I hope you're okay, and see you in the next lesson. Have a good time.